today we've got Taylor Weeks on the Scroll Sessions podcast. Taylor Weeks is the current vice president of sales for Onset Financial. We've connected on LinkedIn, like back and forth. We sent a couple messages, and we're excited to have you on the podcast. And we can just honestly love to get into your background. Tell us a little bit about who you are, why Onset, and a little bit just about your background.
Also, it sounds like you're a dad as well. How many kids you have and stuff like that?
2 kids with another on the way.
Oh,
awesome.
Nice.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Boys or girls?
Boys.
Awesome.
What
All
about,
boys?
do you know the third yet?
We don't.
Okay.
We have waited, and
You're opting till the end?
Yep. And it's
Look
a
at
fun
you, man.
process.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just, I mean, that's more my wife's thing, but hey, I'm very supportive of her. But for me, I mean, yes, I've been with Onset for 10 years. It's been pretty incredible. I think a lot of people look at that and say, why have you been with the same company for so long? And for me, it's been the nonstop growth. And so both growing as an individual, but also professionally, when I started with that company, they were doing 30 million a year in sales. Last year, we did just a hair under 600 million.
Holy. Wow.
And so, this year we'll eclipse that again. We've just been on this absolute rocket ship. And so, at 23, it's interesting because at 23, when I started with that organization, it was really a question of, at that point in my life, I knew that I needed to get into a company and in a position where I could get mentored by someone that was great. Yeah. And so you start looking at different companies, you start looking at your future, and you go, okay, well, what's the right place for me? I met our CEO, Justin Nielsen, and the guy, I mean, it takes just a couple seconds of meeting him to know there's something special about this man. And there has been. It's been such an incredible journey of growth as they took a chance on me while I was still in school, very young. And even though I had some success in sales, because I started with door-to-door sales, I was like, that was the first time that I ever made, and I laugh at this now, but I made $1,000 in a week, and I thought I was rich. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
This 23, this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. And so started that.
What did you sell?
Insulation.
Wait, what? Insulation door. Oh, okay. We had a customer that did this.
Mm-hmm. So really it sounds odd, but it was a really interesting but easy sell once you got your first one. Because you're telling people, hey, write me this check for $3,000 or $5,000. We'll put insulation in your roof, and it's going to save you X amount on utility bills. So you'll earn this back in 5 years or 10 years or whatever. But the utility companies would actually send them a check back for the amount, and they got a tax write-off at the end of the year. But a lot of people go, that's too good to be true. So most people, they look at you and they go, okay, dude, too good to be true. Yeah, right, scammer.
Yeah.
So it took a while to get that first person in the neighborhood, and you got that first one that's just reference selling. Yeah. Hey, we did this for the Johnsons. Oh yeah, and then we did that for these guys up the road, and it was just referrals, and then people started getting their checks, and that was just easy.
Yeah.
But like most things, right? It's always really hard getting started. Yeah, I think about an airplane taking off, uses 50 to 70% of its fuel just in the takeoff, and then it coasts.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Okay, well there you go.
There's your fun fact for today.
That is.
That's
I'm
awesome.
full of useless facts. So I think about that when you're starting any new project, business, position, whatever it is, it's going to take so much energy to get it off the ground. The good thing is you're going to get better and more skilled at it. You're going to have clients as time goes on. And I'm not saying you're just coasting, but you'll find that cruising altitude where you can just maintain. Yeah. And so that was my first time really realizing that in door-to-door sales. And so I try to apply that to everything I do.
That's awesome.
Which started with Onset.
Consistency is everything. It really is 100%.
And what were you studying in school?
So I was actually at Slick doing my associates, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do because I was doing door-to-door. I was moving around, and it's really interesting because my manager, he was successful, but he was taking his wife and his 2 kids everywhere with him. So they're taking them up and relocating every 6 months. Like, it's fun for a guy that's single. Like, great, they paid my rent and everything's great.
Yeah.
But then you get a family. I just thought that's not the life I want. So I came back to Utah, and it wasn't sure what I was going to do. Started school, thought that's a good first step. Was working crappy warehouse job. And which was fine. It was paying my way through school.
Yeah,
yeah, man. Because I really was I thought if I'm going to go to school, if I can get through it without debt, I really want to. And I was lucky enough to be able to pay my way through school. But I hated. I did that warehouse job for a year and a half, and I hated it.
Oh.
It was terrible, and just because it was so physically demanding, that I'm going to school full time, and so I was wiped out all the time.
Yeah.
So I started just looking at different options. Ask some friends, hey, tell me about jobs. If you have a job you like, tell me about it. And this was one of the ones, actually, my buddy replied to me back on Facebook and said, hey, you should come check out our company, Onset Financial. So I did. And again, after meeting the owner, I was like, man, I'm in. Are they in on me?
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough that they took a chance on me at that point. And it's been a long ride. It's been a wild ride though, man. I've learned a lot in the process.
Was that sales? So you started in sales.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it's what does an account executive do? Make 100 dials a day, calling into businesses, trying to find groups that are growing. I mean, what does our product do? We sell money. So simple as that. But we're
Sell money.
I mean, it is.
Yeah, you sell funding.
It's just that. Yeah. But we're looking for clients that are growing and looking at high growth. We think of ourselves as the rocket fuel for these businesses that they have an opportunity to really scale quickly. And most banks, you'll find they'll get behind fast growth to a certain extent, but it scares them. They like consistent growth, 5-10% a year. So you see groups that are maybe earlier stage, they're, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 million. And now all of a sudden they've caught some new customers that are allowing them to really accelerate that growth. That's where we step in. So most of our clients are more in that, call it $50 to $500 million range as far as revenues go. But, we will have a gamut anywhere from that 10, 15 million all the way up to several $1 billion as far as annual revenues go. So for me, when I had started that business, it was way over my head. I'm used to dealing with consumers. I had not done business to business. I'm calling these CFOs and exec companies. Yes, and I'm still at school.
As a lowly 23-year-old.
Right? I haven't even got my degree yet. Yeah. All these people are much more influential than I am. Obviously, they're very smart, and I still to this day appreciate how smart these people are. Because I'll be honest, I went through school, got my MBA. And I've learned more from dealing with these executives and understanding how they operate their businesses and what makes those businesses successful or not. Yeah. You see plenty that are not successful and you go, we wouldn't touch those. And then you talk to them a couple years down the road and you realize, oh, okay, I can see why. The people running that business had no business running it, right? And so why did it fail? Okay, writing was on the wall. But I've learned more directly from those people, and also you start to gain this confidence in yourself when you realize you can influence people more successful than yourself, older than yourself, more accomplished, more degrees, smarter, everything else, with a good sales process and with a good product, right? So it taught me a lot about if you have a good product, if you be confident in yourself, and you have a process that you can follow to sell, you can start to influence people that are in a much. Tony Robbins actually, he says it in an interesting way. He talks about uncertainty. If you're totally certain on your product and other people are getting ramped up to certainty, if you two meet and the one who's going to influence the other is the one that's totally certain. So it helped me. Yeah.
Confident.
Love it.
Confidence,
100%.
man.
Yeah.
Confidence, certainty.
There's relationship advice as well, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to date.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah, relationships. I liken sales to relationships constantly because they're
one and the same, man. Like people buy from people 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
very rare. Well, I mean, obviously you guys you provide a service that's obviously valuable. Mm-hmm. And so do we, so do most other businesses for the most part are valuable to somebody.
Businesses that are successful.
Yes, that stick around. That stick around 100%. But at the end of the day, I would say one of the huge decision makers is if they like that person and if they actually have a relationship with that person. It's going to be the deciding factor over whether or not the product's good or really serves a purpose.
For sure. And I think about too, like as you're dating, we think about as I train guys on sales, I try to differentiate. A lot of people, they just go in and they talk about features. Hey, we're so great because of this. we're the best because of this, right? They're just constantly flexing their muscles, but they forget about the client, right? What's in it for them? Why does that matter? It's great that you do XYZ really well, but how does that benefit their business? And I think dating is similar, right? To go up to a girl and say, I'm rich, I'm good looking, I drive this awesome car back there, go on a date with me.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? But if that's all your conversation is centered around as you go on that date,
Right.
that's probably your last one, right? There
Yeah.
has to be a two-way road here of how that benefits the person you're speaking with. And also I think there's something to resilience as well. I think about my wife, I look at her as well out of my league. I'm sure, most of us probably do that are married, like I got pretty lucky.
Yeah.
And resilience, man, it's I usually look at people with a pretty wife and I go, that's a good salesman right there, because I bet you she didn't just come up and say, yeah, let me give you my number.
Yeah,
Right,
there's
you
a
have to
lot
go-
of convincing that had to go on there, probably.
Right, and you got to take a chance on yourself. You got to bet. You got to bet on the chance that someone says no, right? And let that be okay.
Yeah,
So-
that's awesome. Well, how in your success that you've had with Onset, how has that influenced like your personal life? And obviously going from a college student into an AE, and you're probably starting to make money. Like how did you balance your professional and your personal success?
It's interesting because I'll say a lot of it really comes down to having a very supportive wife. I wasn't married. In fact, did just start dating my wife Kenzie when I started with Onset.
Wait,
Time
hold
out.
on.
Your
Your wife's
wife's name is-
Kenzie?
Yes.
Kenzie.
Oh, no way.
Also
Yeah.
Kenzie.
Oh, dude, we got to go on a triple date.
Yeah, we gotta do it.
What's
So
the
you're
Kenzies?
you're now like one of probably at least 6 or 7 people that I like know now who have a wife named Mackenzie or Kenzie.
So that was going to be my question. Is it Mackenzie or is it, because my wife is just, it's Kinsey. So it's just
there you go.
Kinsey.
Kenzie.
Kenzie.
Okay.
So
Kenzie.
ours are both Mackenzie, but our wives spell them different.
But
Okay.
if somebody calls my wife Mackenzie,
Mhm.
they're probably elderly or don't know her.
Yeah.
Well, my wife gets that too. She gets a
I
little
love how
offended.
we both also did that at the exact same
Yeah,
time.
you're
We were
like, "My
like,
wife
hold
Kenzie,
on.
what?"
It's also Kenzie. That's crazy.
That's how I know this was meant to be.
Yeah, that's
this
awesome. I
meant
love
to-
it.
This is
I love it.
fantastic.
Where were we?
We were
So-
talking about
so
just like
she-
professional and personal success.
It's interesting because my wife, she's entrepreneurial minded. She comes from an entrepreneurial family. Her family owns a couple pawn shops here in Utah called Big Dog Pawn. And she was a model when we started dating. She left to California to go pursue that full time.
Mm.
So we did the long distance thing. And my success was also, I had quick success, but it was kind of spotty those first couple years because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, right? Wasn't fully committed. Because I was like, oh, am I going to California? Am I staying here? And so I had this kind of up and down success. And that I think comes with anything when you don't fully commit.
Especially early on in an AE role, right? A lot of
Yes.
like
Yeah.
you get really high, you get really low. You get really high, you get really low.
Man,
and at that age.
the age, yeah, there's something to maturity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the high and lows, man, that emotional roller coaster, boy, does that make your journey 10 times longer, 10 times
Yeah.
more challenging than it needs to be.
Mhm.
And
For
it really
sure.
was just that, because if you're fully committed, then some of the failures along the way, they're just not as big of an issue. Versus, oh, well, do I stay? Do I go? But as I looked at the job market and considered, okay, do I go somewhere else, and looked at California, I was going back and forth to California every weekend. It was just like, man, this is the right place for me to be. This is really where I need to be. And I just committed myself to say, hey, I'm going to be here at least 5 years. I'm going to give it everything I got and see what happens. And it's amazing what happened when I made that commitment, because my girlfriend at the time, Kinsey, she decided to come move back and live with me. We ended up buying our first home. Or she sent me this, I'll call it a demand letter.
A little ultimatum.
Totally.
maybe?
and she had a couple demands on it. One of them was to take her to Paris. So ended up taking her to Paris to get where we got engaged, which was great. We ended up going back to Europe for honeymoon, which was
Cool.
just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, and I I had never been out of the country. She took me out of the country the year before we got engaged, and we went to Mexico. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude,
This is amazing.
I've been missing so much of my life.
Yeah.
And so it changed a lot because all of a sudden I went from, I grew up in a family that didn't have much money. I had never had much money. And it started to not only give me an opportunity to look at things different, look at money differently, but also get around successful people that were, helping me make better decisions along the way. And so started to do these things. I was like, man, owning a home and starting to travel and invest in some of these different things. It was cool to grow as personally and also professionally. And then to be able to support my wife as she built her business and she's incredible at marketing and branding. She really is the opposite of what I do, but has built a supplement business, I guess the easiest way to put it, that does between 1 and 2 million a year in sales, that just out of the house, mostly selling collagen for women to help grow their hair. And so,
awesome.
yeah, man. So it's helped me, be able to support her so she could grow that. And so it's been cool, man. And for me, I think the most awesome thing now that I'm in the role that I am today is new young people. And I won't generalize and say just young men, but I just find that more men prefer this industry than women because it's very hard. It's very, very challenging. It's a long sell cycle. So this isn't something we're going to have a sell every day,
Yeah.
every week. If you're good, you'll have a sell every month. But especially when you're new, you might have 3 or 4 deals all year.
Annually.
Yeah.
That's it. And so it requires some major patience. That's not something that I naturally am strong at, and that's why I started long distance running to actually start training myself,
That's
dude.
awesome.
Just like lock
Get some
in.
patience.
Yeah. Get
Yes.
some
Yeah.
patience.
We
in
were
you.
talking about running before we were recording, and maybe you can hit on that a little bit about. So, what kind of running do you do?
I've
Do you
tried
run
a little-
races, or do you just run?
I've tried a little bit of everything. So I've only done one ultra, which was a 50K.
Where at?
Did that one in Moab.
Which
Cool.
one? Dead Horse?
No. It was actually, yeah. Was it Moab or was it Arches? I did it start of 2022. So
Early, like January?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, so it was Arches.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Arches 50K.
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
familiar with
Thank
the
you.
race. Yeah.
see, you're so one of the guys at Onset, his name's Dustin Bond. He does tons of ultras.
Okay.
And so he took me on I don't call it an ultra, it was a 25K down at Antelope, did the 50K at Arches, and I just my body hates those long runs, man.
Yeah.
I hate those long runs. So
Everybody's body hates the long run.
Yeah.
that's
See, my body won't even start running, so it's fine.
Some people's brains are just crazy enough to not listen to their
Yeah,
bodies.
well, when I look at Dustin, it's interesting. He's like, your talent is you can go fast. And I'm like, for sure. For him, he can go for forever. I mean, he's
Yeah.
got
See,
these
I'm
giant-
slow, but I can go.
Yeah, the stamina.
That's it,
Yeah.
man. He's not in a hurry. He's got these
Yep.
giant calves that just can go for forever. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
man. Like
Yeah.
that's not
You do you.
that's not me. I start cramping up and hate my life after 20 miles. And I'll get there, right? I'll figure out a way. But it does teach you how to just manage. I doing my first marathon, I was like, I think I'm done running for good. And it's interesting how just it pulls you back. There's something about just committing yourself to go do these hard things, and then you go and
Yeah.
do it.
Yep.
And because there's something always goes wrong. Something always goes wrong.
Guaranteed.
Chafing or cramping or
Stomach.
oh, dude.
Yeah.
That was actually the biggest problem I had with the 50K was I ate too many gels early on.
Yeah.
And not enough food, and I was like, "Oh, my stomach was just
Yeah.
killing me, man." That's okay. We got to the end, and I was just like,
Yeah.
"Get me real food."
Yeah.
Like these peanut butter sandwiches are not doing it.
Right. They do say that the best ultra runners can just eat the most food.
So what you've done ultras? Tell me a little bit about what do you usually eat? What's your
just-
diet?
I try and eat like real food, but soft stuff, and Tailwind. Tailwind it's like a beverage that has calories in it. So it's easier on the
See.
stomach. It was invented by a guy that was running the Leadville 100 in Colorado.
Okay.
And he's like, this is all I took instead of eating. And
Pretty significant.
yeah, his
race.
stomach was way better and ended up making a whole company out of it. So now Tailwind is pretty much just liquid calories. So
Let's check that out.
it's kind of like getting an IV of calories into you instead of trying to muscle down a sandwich or something. You know what I mean? But I think on long races, after a certain point, you do need a little bit of real food, or else you get that brain just mush and body mush.
Does
your stomach?
The brain mush? Is there any way to beat that after the 18 to 20 miles? I mean, have you been able to stave off the?
No, I think no matter what, like sales, right? Like I do think running and sales or running a business have a lot in common because when it comes to running, there will be a point of friction.
Yes.
And
you got to push through.
You got to push through it because there's light on the other side, meaning every time, and you know how this feels, right? There's the runner's high, but then there's also the bonk. So you've got the bonk and the runner's high. So I feel a bonk around a certain mileage, right? Might feel it at mile 10, might feel it at mile 20, but I always then feel a runner's high at some point. Both are short-lived. And I think that that's the concept of sales too, is you have bonks, you have highs, but consistency is the reward in sales, not the highs and the lows. Like you're not running for the runner's high, you're running to prove consistency. I think the same thing's true in sales, that consistency is what's rewarded over the highs and the lows. If you focus on highs and lows, you're going to give up.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as long as you continue to just push, like you'll beat out everybody else who gives up, because eventually you'll
tortoise in the hare.
Yeah. Eventually someone will give up, and you'll be ahead if you just continue the path, for sure. So like what's some examples? I mean, maybe professionally where you've like pushed through a bonk phase.
I mean, obviously early on when you were dating, getting the demand list.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. One is, it's funny, after that commitment, I had a ton of success, was able to get promoted to a manager. I was the youngest manager company ever promoted. A couple years later, maybe the youngest VP, and then 2020 hit. There's my bonk stage.
There's COVID.
Cracked over the head.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly hard because you saw things going. We continue to double business quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. I just think about our team.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden everything falls off a cliff and you go, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then so you have a quarter where you have next to nothing, and then another quarter where there's like next to nothing. You're working as hard as you can to ramp up and manage people at home and all these just changes. And so for me at 30, I'm going, man, this is the biggest professional challenge I've ever faced. But we overcame that. We ended up still having a great year. And a lot of that came from that final quarter, all the hard work that we put in, all the focus, consistency, right? It was just like, we know how to do this. We know how to win. And I had to keep reminding people that don't lose sight of why you come and do this every single day. Don't lose sight of the rewards that are available if you'll keep showing up. And so it was cool. We ended up being the top team that year, and getting rewarded for that, and being able to go celebrate and do some fun things. So it was really great. That's definitely a bonk phase, man. And that's part of business, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The ebbs and flows come with business. There are times that you're killing it, and there's times that you're just getting beat over the head, right?
Yeah.
But success is waiting for those who don't give up, right? Those who don't quit. So to exactly your point, right? That's the key.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, during COVID, like for us, like we honestly we tried to pivot who we served to during more or less COVID, during that, more or less recession that we all went through. Did you guys feel like you needed to pivot industries for who you were focusing on? Did it really just come down to like just sticking it out through that year?
It was just waiting it out. I mean, a lot of it was fear. Fear stopped people in their tracks because it's hard to make decisions when you don't know what's around the corner. Everyone was dealing with something they'd never dealt with before. And so for business owners, they're going, is this going to continue? Am I going to lose my business? What's going to happen? I don't want to take on debt or buy equipment or grow my business or do anything if I don't know if
it's not going to be around tomorrow.
Literally, right? It's why obligate myself? So it was more, people just needed to see that the world wasn't going to light on fire and we weren't all going to die. And because it was scary there for a minute, right? I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on COVID. I won't get political.
I have been a hypochondriac in my life. So pre-pandemic, I'm already scared that I'm gonna get sick from something. Right. Pandemic hits, and early on, all I'm doing is hearing that like everyone's gonna die. There's no cure.
They're putting the death count on. Anyways,
Yeah.
but like, I mean, it was like, there was a certain fear. Like, we had just had a brand new baby in January of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
So we come into March and we have the earthquake happen in Utah. We have COVID hit. We go work from home. We had just moved into this apartment, and I'm like, my entire life is going to end.
And
Like,
keep in mind, our
everything's going
business
down.
is pretty new.
Yeah.
We're 4 years old, so our business was new.
Oh man.
And it was like, okay, either this is going to be really bad or really good. Ended up being really good for us. Just like, it's all about waiting it out, right?
Yeah.
I think the one thing you said that was most impactful was you made a decision where you sold to yourself. You said 5 years. I'm going to give myself 5 years. And when you sell yourself on something and you keep your commitment to yourself, look at the rewards. You become the youngest manager, you become the youngest VP. Like, those things are really important to do. And so many people forget to do them in the sales space. And that's why they're jumping every year or every 2 years.
Yeah.
Right?
And you've been consistent at Onset for 10 years, and it's like,
10 years,
it's paid off, man.
Oh, it has. I mean, it helps that it's a great company. It helps that they treat you really well, and at the same time, to be mentored under a guy that's just incredible. And it's just that went that 5 years and was like, okay, that was worth it. And committed myself for another 5, and so I try to look at things from a little bit of a longer point of view than just what's going to happen in 1 year. I think people underestimate what you can accomplish in 10 years and overestimate what you can do in 1 year. Right. And so you overestimate what you can do in 1 year, you get frustrated. And you go, man, I didn't hit that. But most of the goals I set for my 10 years, right, to say, hey, I don't know how I could possibly get to 100 million in sales within 10 years, but that's my goal. Well, we were able to accomplish that, right, and exceed that. And we continue to grow as a team. I think about my time as a manager going from 0 to last year doing 50 million just as a team as you grow. And it's an interesting journey to scale that quickly and put processes in place that work, that you can just put people into your business and have them succeed. And so it is. It's a journey of learning. But you have to commit long enough to see the rewards that actually happen, right? To get to the rainbow with the pot of gold, man.
Yeah. I was gonna ask Taylor, you guys ramped very quickly. I mean, I think you said where was the starting like revenue of like Onset?
30.
So when I started in what year are we in? So in 2013, when I started, they'd done 30 million that year, and that was actually a big jump from the year before. So company started in 2008.
Okay,
probably the best time to start a finance company.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so it was tough going the first few years there.
Yeah,
and I think they really started to catch their stride 2011, 2012. So I got to get on at a good time.
Yeah, for sure. And then you guys ramped all the way. I mean, you said past 500 million, 600 million? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a massive leap in the 10-ish years. And you've seen it as more or less entry level and AE all the way to VP. Mm-hmm. What have been some frameworks, if you can share, that like you've been able to like put in with your team, or that Onset's put in place so that you guys could have that success and be able to ramp so significantly in the last 10 years?
I think we do a few things just differently than others in the marketplace, and so it just allows us to think creatively, to move really quickly. I mean, I've seen deals get done for millions of dollars in less than a week. I can think of a couple just off the top of my head of 5 million that we did in 3 or 4 days, another 5 million we did in 5 days. Just crazy to be able to turn around that type of funding in such a short period of time. And so our owner, Justin Nilsson, I mean, that guy's done some incredible things to just really streamline the underwriting process, to put funding sources in place that aren't just like a lot of finance companies, right, that are independent. So we're independently owned. They're dependent on one source of capital, right? They're dependent on one bank, or they're dependent on certain private lenders to stand behind them. So instead, we've got a number of banks we can turn to, but we've got a number of private sources of capital that are unique to us, and we're very lucky because we've built such a strong relationship. They really only will work with us. They won't work with any of our competitors. And so it allows us to, I think, just separate ourselves as far as what we can do for clients as far as speed, flexibility, And when you think about flexibility, that might be financing out of the country. That might be financing a project that has a lot of soft costs that maybe they're buying a building and they're going to renovate the entire inside. Well, most lenders are going to look at that, and if they're not financing the building and say, that sucks, I don't really want your drywall
Yeah.
and flooring, and we can still get comfortable with those types of deals. So I think it's more what we're able to offer to our clients that separates us so much that they see the value, and by adding value in a way that others aren't, you buy loyalty, right? And so your clients begin to come back again and again to you for doing a great job, for over promising and then over delivering.
Yeah. No, it's huge. And obviously, like relationships that you guys have, internally, externally, have been massive to your success.
Big time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's interesting too, you going from AE to VP, you transition to, you know, someone who's doing the work, and you're still doing the work now, but now you're also managing people who are doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
What has been that journey from you? Was it hard? Like, what have you learned going from, entry level to a manager in the last 10 years? What's been your,
I'm a much better manager than I am in account executive. I'll tell you that much. My skill set is, I think I do one thing really, really well, and that's finding good talent and developing that talent.
yeah.
And I would say, based on the results I've had since becoming a manager versus the results I had before, kind of speaks for itself, because I love, I mean, truly, I love the process of training people on how to become successful, showing them the way, and then helping them get there. And I've been able to see a number of people, their lives absolutely change by coming to work with me, right?
Yeah.
I get to have that impact for them and their families. So it's a totally different role, but I like processes. I like I like explaining things in processes, putting processes in place to say, do X, Y, Z, and you'll get Y.
Yeah.
Or do A, B, C, and you'll get Y. That's probably a better way to say it. And so that's a big thing. I think I found that it's just a different way of thinking. When you're an account executive, you're really just told, hey, this is what you need to do. Go do it. Right. And people who know how to follow direction well, usually have success. And then as you start to figure out the business for yourself, you put your own twist into it, you put your personality into it. And that's the goal, right? Be yourself. People are, at the end of the day, they're going to buy you.
Yeah.
And for me, I try to just look at, how do we have success? How do we find some consistency in our success? What are things that you could do again and again that are going to somewhat normalize your results? And so when I do that, I look at, okay, that's the process I'm going to put in place that people can follow to get these results, to get a customer to give you an opportunity, or to take a proposal that we're sending and get them to sign it more often than not. And so that's the biggest thing that I've shifted my focus on. It's not to just finding deals. It's how can we be more efficient? How can we win more deals? Efficiency really is that. It's like, I want to be consistently winning 1 out of 4 proposals I send. And if I can do that, then we have a lot of success, right? If it falls below that, then that tells me my process, my system is broken.
Okay.
So no, I appreciate it.
My question was, more or less, when you bring an AE in on their first day, like, how do you set them up and lead them to success?
So everyone's got their own individual path to success. So when we come in, I obviously want to get to know them more on a personal level, but I have them set goals. What is it you want out of this in your first year? And after setting your goals, then we're going to have you actually put that on paper in a vision board, right? So some of those goals may be a little, I mean, I want you to dream big, but if they're totally just unattainable,
I want to make $1 million year one.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna set you on the right path and say, this is, I want you to get there, but it might take you a couple of years. So this is how we're gonna get you to, this is what's gonna be the first step to get to the bigger goal. We'll have them put vision boards together, and then also an action plan. So what type of effort are you gonna put in to get there? And so I think that's the big things. Everyone wants the big rewards, but they're not willing to put in the work required to have this major success. And that comes from putting in the work on a day-to-day basis, but also the professional development, right? What are you reading? How often are we going to be training together to make sure that you have good habits in place that are going to help you become successful? So we want to schedule all that out. And then I meet with my guys every Friday. So every Friday I get to meet with everyone individually. get a sense of how they're doing. We do accountability to see how they're doing on track to their goals. And that allows us to realize, okay, do we need to speed up in certain areas? Do we need to add something new in?
Yeah.
Like what changes do we need to make along the way? So it allows us to constantly assess, how do we get you to your goals? So I want people to take ownership. I want them to set their own goals. I'm not going to set them for them. Obviously, we have minimums. You have to hit quota, right? And that's a
Yeah.
given. But everyone comes in, I think, because they are ambitious. They see bigger things for themselves. So I'm like, set your own goals. I have accountability over that, and I'm going to support you every step of the way. So that's how I go about it.
Cool. I love that. I think it's awesome.
If I can ask for you guys, right? If with some of the best leaders that you've worked with or seen personally, what have you seen for getting people into quick success? Are there things that you've noticed that typically work as people are getting into success quickly, or have been good strategies for people to, as they're setting off on a new journey to help find success?
It's a great question. I think just with people that I've interacted in the last, since I got into my roles, I've always been kind of an entrepreneur. I mean, I worked out of high school as a carpenter. I worked in a bakery in high school. Like I've had bosses, but after post high school, I've been an entrepreneur. I've always just started a photography business, but I've been mentored and I've had a lot of mentors and been in school. I think the number one thing that I've seen is really the personal accountability thing is huge.
Mhm.
And then having something to actually like work for. And I think you hit on both of those, like those points perfectly, and also writing them down. Like there is something, and I think a lot of people say, oh, let's make goals, let's like set this training schedule or whatever. But like actually writing a goal down and then putting an action plan in place to hit it. Like even if you don't hit the goal like exactly, you're probably like, it's like the whole thing. You shoot for the stars, land in the moon, right?
Totally.
Like you're still gonna be much further than you were if you didn't do anything at all. And so like even if you make this insane goal, I want to be, a millionaire in 2 years. Like even if you write it down, you write your plan, and maybe you don't hit that $1 million in a year or 2 years, you're probably going to get, is 500,000, 600,000, maybe, get close to it. And there's no way you would have ever gotten there without actually putting in the work and putting the action plan in place. So I know
100%.
like mentors that I've had have always been on like the strategy side of things and the execution side, and really having that plan is just huge. And then obviously executing it. But
Love that.
yeah, that's on my side. But
Yeah, I think I would say that the people that I look up to as mentors for success have a similar definition of success as myself, right? So, um, people that look up to, I think that for me, I believe success is that outside of money, it is, how am I treating people? Do I feel like I have integrity in my life? Do I feel like I'm making personal growth with my family, with my friends? And am I personally engaged with the people around me? Are they feeling like they can trust me and look to me? Am I feeling like I can trust them and look to them? And I think that thinking of a few people in particular, I I mentor or I mimic their success as far as how they treat others. So I try and look to the way they're talking to people, or I try and look to the way that they're communicating with people, or I'll try to mimic the way that they are living. Right? If there's a sense of I'm eating they're eating healthier, they're exercising more, they're doing specific rituals that are helping them be better. Like those are the things that I look to try and mimic, and that's where I feel like that's the type of mentorship I look towards when it comes to success. I've never really looked at I do have financial, I think, goals, and I want to be more successful financially, right? So when I have those mentors, it's more data driven. I'm like,
Sure.
"Hey, you own rental properties. Talk to me about them. I want to understand more about what you're doing." But those people, I'm not necessarily looking to them from an internal success perspective. So that's kind of a long-winded way to say it, but I feel like I look at different aspects of it, I guess. I don't know.
I love that, because I think about things really you talk about 4 pillars, right? Health, wealth, love, and happiness. And I think you got to meet all 4 of them. And you can simplify that even further to just say health, wealth, and spirituality, right? I think spirituality and then family and friendships. But I think you've got to fill your cup on each of those levels, or else you're just going to be unsatisfied. If you've got no friends, no family, but you got a lot of money, man, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with you guys, and that's I try to help people see that money is only one part of the equation. And when you're young, you start to think, man, all my problems will be solved if I have money. That's the whole equation.
Yeah.
It's not, and we all figured that out with a little bit of wisdom and experience, but try to help people understand that right away. That your life will become unbalanced at certain points, right? There are times that you have to work more. There are times you got to put more time in the family. There's times you got to put more into your health, and that's okay, right? Different things are going to require more of you at different times. But I think if you know what you're after, you know what you want, you know where to put your attention at different times, and yes, but I think that the clarity comes from actually figuring out what do I want. I think that's one of the biggest things I try to really help people understand as they come to work with me is I want them asking that question all the time. What do you want? Right. And because I ask that one to myself all the time too. What do I actually want? And that I think helps you cut through the minutia of what everyone else's expectations are versus what we actually want in our own lives.
Yeah.
They're usually very different, but we can let everyone else's expectations cloud our judgment of what we actually are chasing, what we're actually going towards.
Yeah.
If we're following what we actually want on a day-to-day basis, I think you get more results, you find more happiness in your daily life, and frankly, you're going to be a lot more fulfilled.
Yeah, that's great.
100%.
See, I look at people like you and I'm like, I would see Taylor as a good example of the type of person I would want to mimic when it comes to success, right? Like, and I don't think because Taylor has a lot of money, that wouldn't be my first assumption. I'd be like, because he's high energy, because he's friendly, because he's confident. Like I see those things and then I immediately, and this is probably a mistake on my part, where I immediately am like, oh, if I have a lot of money, I'll be those things, right? I'll be high
Right.
energy, I'll be confident, I'll be this. But when in reality, it's the reverse. People make a lot of money because they're high energy, they're confident, they're caring, those types of things. So that's I think that's a perspective that I have a lot. But
Well, our habits drive everything, right? And I think about that in sales, right? Our processes, our habits, the things that we do again and again, that's going to determine our success.
Yeah.
And I mean, that happens in sales, it happens in our home lives, it happens in everything. Our habits really drive everything. And so I think if we can be really good about setting our good rituals, morning routines, right? We can control our energy and our enthusiasm. That is totally in our control. I can't control what a customer does, but I can control how I approach every conversation. I can control how prepared I am for those conversations, right? To increase the odds that I actually can get the outcome I want. So you're exactly right. It's the success comes as a result of the habits and rituals that we put in place, and then following those again and again. And that's a hard part, right? It's easy to start a habit for a little period of time, but then to keep doing it long enough to make it actually matter, that becomes a lot more challenging.
Well, it's like in the we were at Atomic Habits as like a leadership team at Scroll, and
Love that.
it's such a good book.
I made my whole team read that book this year.
It's such a good book. And like, I mean, that book, in my opinion, like boils down to it's compounding habits. It's like you have to start small, because if you start big first, usually things don't go so well.
Right.
And he gives a lot of like sport analogies in that book. But I think one of the greatest pieces of his advice is that start small. Start with something that you can do every day. And then once you nail that, over 30 days, add something else, and then continue to compound that. And over your lifetime, like it will pay dividends forever.
Yeah, it's the concept of like, you don't have to go on a run, just put on your running shoes while you're brushing your teeth.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
If you just put them on after a week, you're going to feel kind of silly that you're putting on your running shoes every day and not going on a run.
Yeah.
Like you're going to start going. So,
and he talks about a lot about like visualizing more or less the person that you want to be.
Yes.
And then putting look at the person and who they are, and then start to do the things that they do, right? In small habits. Maybe not going out and running a marathon immediately, but like you said, just putting one foot in your shoe at a time and taking it from there, one day at a time.
So, on to kind of wrap up, let's do a rapid fire of some sales questions.
Okay, I
and
love
some,
that.
maybe like some sales dilemmas that I think add some
Do some
value.
role playing.
All right,
We're gonna do
all
some
right.
role
Some role
playing.
playing. Yeah, no. So questions that I have for you, because you've got 10 years of experience and tons of tracked revenue behind what you've done. So I think that what you have to say on this is very valuable.
I'm excited.
Good friend of ours we've had on the podcast before, Mark America Smith.
Oh yeah.
Famous for getting in a lot of trouble on LinkedIn. He had posted about how sales is not all about relationships, and then he said, he kind of emphasized, hey, if you could tell me the full name of the last person you bought something from that was an expensive purchase, then I'll give you $20. And he says he doesn't hand out the money very often. It's pretty much the LinkedIn post. I butchered that. But we kind of talked about how sales is a lot of relationships. And I want to kind of hear a rebuttal, I guess. Obviously, we love Mark, but I just want to hear, what are your thoughts on that? And how would you go about that statement?
I agree with Mark quite a bit on that, actually, because I think about sales. A relationship's going to get you in the door.
Yeah.
I know it's people, we hear this all the time. People buy from people they know, like, and trust, because a lot of times purchases are made emotionally, but they're backed up with logic. So it has to make sense. And in our role, we're dealing with people in the finance world. They double check everything. They're accountants, they're CFOs. And so the logic side of things always comes into play. Yes, they make decisions emotionally, but the logic backs it up. So I think relationships are what gets you an opportunity. It's what gets them to say, I'm going to give you a chance because I think that I could enjoy working with you. I could see ourselves being partners over the long term. But if we come to the table with something that makes no sense, a solution that doesn't fit, total square peg in a round hole, it's not going to work. They're not going to move ahead. So I think the solutions, I whiffed, right? What's in it for them? I think that's such an important key. We always have to be thinking about, how is this going to benefit our customer or client? And you have to build a relationship to know what their problems are. If you don't build a relationship, you don't know what their problems are, you're not going to be able to sell the relevant solution, and you're not likely to close.
I think that's so well said.
And Mark, I think, was it in the post that he's like, people buy more or less solutions they don't buy from people.
Right. And I think the emphasis is that the relationship gets you in the door, the solution closes the deal, right? Yep. And the point to that is relationship got you in the door, so it's going to get you more bids. And
without a doubt.
If you have the best product, then you're going to close it. You have the best rates, you're going to close it. Yep. So that's a great.
And solutions, I think about rates, right? People always think, oh, what's the pricing, and rates are always the easiest one to lean on. Sure, if you can't show different types of value. And so that's where it comes down to really know. If I don't know what the real problem is and I'm making a decision, then I'm just going to I'm look at everyone the same. I'm going to lay all the price across the table and say, okay, whoever's the cheapest, I'll pick them. Right. But having a good relationship, you start to really uncover what the real issues and problems your customer has. Yeah. So you can present a relevant solution. And does that always have to be the cheapest? No. Sometimes it'll be more expensive than the others, but it provides more value to that company. And so I think people leave a lot of money on the table because they're just trying to play this game of, well, I don't know how to add more value than the next guy, so let's just go with cheapest price. And if I'm the cheapest all the time, that's a tough business model to hold on to.
See, that's a great point,
long time,
though.
yeah.
Trusted advisor, right? Like the relationship, trusted advisor is valuable, because I'm looking at buying a second property right now.
Right.
And my friend who I've gone to lunch with a bunch, and we've talked a little bit about this off air, but he's always been willing to give me advice on what to do when I want to get into investment properties. Then time has come that I'm looking at getting one. I reach out to him for a quote. Relationship got him in the door.
Yep.
And his rate was higher than another quote that I got. But to your point, I did reach back out to him and say, hey, why is this? I want to understand, is there something wrong with this other one? because I'm going to look to him as a trusted advisor.
Right.
And I still could end up doing something with him based off of, you know, he might come back and help me understand the situation a little better. So, because I'm a novice and he knows what he's talking about and I trust him.
Well, and that trust is important because I think we've all had situations where we went with what looked to be the cheaper option, but it turned out to be a nightmare and ended up costing us more money in the long run.
Yeah.
So I try to help people see the full picture, right? Because exactly what your buddy's doing, sometimes you only are looking at it through one lens. And yes, through that one lens, you're going, okay, that's my best solution, but is there something I'm missing? And
bird's eye.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. It's when you don't know everyone's business model, there's a lot of fine print to read through with financing. You know, you're going through it right now. You got to be well informed, right, to make sure that what you see is actually what you get. And I think that's an important one. When there's that drastic of a change, I usually have to dig into that too. So what's going on here? So hopefully your buddy can salvage that one and maybe he may help you out.
I love it. I love it. My sales question: how do you structure your AE's day? Like, what is the most efficient use of time throughout the day, and how do you guys structure it?
Great. That's a great question. Morning time is grind time. That 8 to 12, come in and call as hard as you can. And we want that to be calling new prospects, right? Not calling your existing customers.
Yeah.
So that you can get 60% of your work done in that morning. And then afternoon is when we do follow-ups. So with prospects and deals we're trying to move forward, conference calls, that's where any leads or deals that they brought in, we do a call together to start to move that deal forward. And any other administrative type work is all held for the afternoon as well. So morning time is grind time, get as much done as you can. Afternoon is for any of that cleanup, follow-up, conference calls, and administrative work.
Love that. Other one is what, or maybe the last one to wrap us up. What is the number one piece of advice you'd give a new AE? Or anyone wanting to get into sales?
That is a great wrap-up question. I feel like that is the one that we want to.
That is a great question. I guess a couple of things, right? So first and foremost, if you want to get into sales, just commit yourself, right? If you're just saying, hey, I'm going to dabble, you're not going to be very successful because there are people that are fully committed. And if you're going into something half committed versus someone that's fully committed, you'll lose every time.
Yeah.
But I think commit yourself at the same time to just personally developing if you do want to enter sales so that you can start to learn some of the skill sets required. I think about empathy. That's something I didn't have before I went into business-to-business sales and being able to understand where people are coming from. I use that at home with my wife, and it helps with a lot of arguments. I use it with my clients.
Yeah, totally.
And it's something that I developed as a result of this business, this industry. And are you willing to lean into your fears? It would be my last thought, right? If you really want to get into sales, you have to lean into your fears. I think that's in anything, right? If you want to start a business, you have to want the outcome more than we have to want the outcome more than you're afraid of doing X, Y, Z. Maybe that's asking for the business or picking up the phone and making a dial. I see that happen all the time as I consult with businesses and help them put sales structures in place or just change some of their sales strategies. And a lot of times it's like, how do we help these guys overcome some of the fears they have that are really stopping them from success? So if you want to get into sales, know why you want to get into sales and commit yourself fully. If you can do that and then commit yourself to personally developing, you can be ultra successful.
I love it, man.
I love it.
Thanks for coming on today, Taylor. It was a super fun conversation. Really, really appreciate it. And nice to know you now.
I loved it. I appreciate helpful. You guys.
Yeah, we need to get you on the phone with our AEs, man.
Anytime. You let me know. Thanks for having me. Anytime you need a little pump up for your group, man, you got it. That's on me.
Oh, dude, you're awesome. Good.
Thanks, Taylor.
Well, where can people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. So just my name, Taylor Weeks. And then also I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and at wealthy.weeks. So I talk a lot about just different strategies for business, different strategies for mindset and success, and obviously do a lot of business consulting as well from the sales side and debt side. So I'd love to hear from you.
Cool.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. That's a wrap.
Appreciate it.